Hey, what's up, guys? Mitchell Salazar here, broadcaster for the World Surf League, and I really appreciate WSL Brasil having me on for the upcoming Lexus WSL Finals. Let's give a breakdown of the brackets and the matchups that we should be seeing over there at lower trestles. Starting with the women, Tatiana Weston Webb representing Brazil up against Australia's Molly Picklum. It's a really fun matchup. Tati had an outside shot of qualifying for the finals at the last event in Fiji. I was able to make it by making the final. Didn't win, but that might even be better for her in terms of motivation. She's been a runner-up to the World Championship back in 2021, and against Molly Picklum, who's won an event this year. It's a real interesting one because Molly's great on both the forehand and on the backhand, but I'd probably say Tati's backhand is maybe outside of Caroline Marks the best on tour. It's a real tight matchup. I think Tati has a great chance right there, especially if there's a bit more swell in the water. But the one thing that I will say about Molly, she knows how to win heats. So experience might be in the favor of Tati, but Molly has youth on her side. If it were up to me, I'd probably say that Tati makes it through this heat, and she'd be facing up against Brisa Hennessy, who had an outstanding competitive year. Just looking at her resume so far, really incredible. I know she only has the one win over there at Sunset Beach a few years ago, but extremely consistent in 2024. I was really amazed with the way she was not only able to compete this year. I think the most important thing about Brisa's 2024 competitive season was the consistency that she provided. Didn't have a result outside of the quarterfinals except one in Portugal when she ruptured her eardrum. It's going to be a tough matchup for Tati, and she's going to be nice and fresh early on in the morning after Tati's probably going to have her first matchup against Molly. Um, in this case, I'd probably go Brisa just because of the amazing and outstanding year that she's had. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tati face up against Caroline Marks, who to me is the toughest matchup right here. Just looking at her experience, the way she's been able to compete, not only this year, but last year too. She was the number 3 seed in 2023, eventually became world champion against Carissa Moore and beat her in just 2 matches too. I feel like this is going to be a real tough heat for Brisa. I have Caroline winning. I just think she's too good on a lot of those rights, and living right there in San Clemente right now, it's going to be extremely hard for anybody to be able to beat her, including world number 1 right now, Caitlin Simmers. I mean, if we look at the old format, Caitlin would be a world champion by now by a long margin. That being said, this format right here with the finals, despite her competing here last year, it does add a lot of pressure. And especially for somebody that's just 18 at the moment, it's not something that she's used to. Caroline's been in the spotlight before. She won the Olympics, gold medalist over there. She knows how to handle pressure well. And in the case of competing right here at home in the U.S. in San Clemente, I just feel like it's too favorable for her. I have Caroline Marks being world champion at the end of this year. I would love to see Caitlin Simmers win her first world title at the end of the Lexus WSL Finals. I think Caroline Marks is going to go back to back on the women's side. Now, if we transition over to the men's, real incredible field. I mean, the fact that Italo was able to win 2 out of the last 4 events of the regular season was really mind blowing. He does have an excellent matchup though against Ethan Ewing, and if you look at their points, there's less than 1,000 separating both Ethan Ewing and Italo, and I'm very interested to see the way not only Italo responds to being the number 5 seed, despite him being in that position before when he beat Kanoa in 2022, made it all the way to the final matches against Philippe. I think this is an excellent matchup for him because if the swell is in his favor, he's the person to beat today. Just his experience, how good he is on both rights and lefts, how explosive he can be. And it doesn't really matter the amount of waves he can catch. He can keep going all day long at the same kind of pace. So rhythm is definitely his friend. But when we look at Ethan Ewing on the other side, he's no doubt the best rail surfer in the world right now, especially on the championship tour. Waves get 5, 6 feet. I feel like he's one of the favorites to win the entire thing. But in terms of the forecast that we're probably seeing right now, if it's 3 feet, 4 feet, I'd probably say Ito is going to have a very, very strong edge against not only Ethan Ewing, but anybody else. So I think first matchup, Ito is probably my pick right there. He'd be going up against Jack Robinson, who's the number 3 seed. And, another thing about Fajeda is that not only is he very quick, he's explosive too. So a lot of those waves that could only be 1 or 2 maneuvers, he'll fit them in real quick. I think he's a deadly personality. I really like the way he competes at a venue like that and has a lot of experience. He's been there 3 times now, including this one. I feel like he's going to defeat Jack Robinson right here, even though Jack is in a great headspace, excellent state of mind. He knocked out Yago out of Final 5 contention over there in Fiji, and he won multiple events this year, including Sunset Beach and in Margaret River. But I feel like Título is going to be a bit too hard to beat. And then the matchup against Griffin Colapinto right there is going to be exciting. Griffin's coming off of a lot of momentum, had a great experience over at the Olympics. But the fact that he won the last event of the regular season in Fiji, just to me adds a lot more confidence to himself right now. He competed last year at home in the finals. He has the experience of being there and knowing what it's like to be able to put on a jersey in front of his home crowd. And he even admittedly said that this might be the last chance that he has to win a world championship at home too. So this being the last event before we head over to the Fiji for the finals in 2025, to me just makes it even more exciting for him. And he probably wants to perform even better under pressure. There's a close one right here. I feel like despite saying that Italo has a gas tank that can go for 1,000,000 miles, he might just face, the most unformidable foe right here in Griffin Colapinto in these kind of conditions. He's the one guy that I kind of look towards to right now in terms of maturity and how much growth he's had in the last year or two. And I feel like Griffin's turned into that guy right now. I think he defeats Italo in that matchup right there, and he eventually faces off against world number 1 John Florence, who might be not only the best surfer on the planet right now, he's going to go down as one of the greatest surfers of all time. This is one of those matchups that I'm really excited for. It's a bummer that we don't get to see a goofy footer in the final matches on the men's side, but all in all, you have the most consistent surfer out of the year in John Florence, who only won 1 event, but he did make 4 finals, had a very outstanding year in terms of excellent scores, excellent heat percentages, facing off against Griffin, who not only won multiple events, he made multiple finals too outside of that, and very consistent, very aware of his presence on tour where he's at right now. He was in the race for world number 1 for a good amount of time, was Griffin, eventually had to settle for number 2 in the world. But once again, I think the fact that he was able to win the event in Fiji to close out the regular season was something huge for both his motivation and his presence in terms of his confidence on tour. So now heading up against the final matches against John is the biggest test he's going to be able to face. I think John's specialty right here is just him being able to wait things out and have somebody have to face him up until that point. Same thing with Philippe last year. When he faced Ethan Ewing in the final matches, we hadn't seen Philippe up until that point. Nobody had really done in there the way he did. So maybe there's a couple of aces up John's sleeve that he has that nobody really knows about. His equipment looks great. I feel like overall he's probably in his best shape ever in his career. And I feel like even though this format isn't something that he's been used to, because it's his first time actually qualifying for the Lexus WSL Finals, to me, he's still the person to beat. I have him being world champion at the end of this year, and I would love to see him become a 3-time world champion and eventually fight for number 4 in 2025 too. But that's my final matchup on the men's side. I think John faces off against Griffin Colapinto. I think they go to all 3 matches, but I think John takes it out 2-1. On the women's side, I feel like it's going to be Caroline Marks going 2-0 against Caitlin Simmers. Tamo junto, valeu, galera. Remember to tune in to the Lexus WSL Finals starting September 6th all the way to the 14th on worldsurfleague.com. You can also watch it live and free on the WSL app. See you guys soon. Have fun.